sharing for a lot of us to use their space for this event tonight. If you guys need to use the restroom at any point, it's downstairs, just to the right of where you checked in. At the end of the talk, we'll be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A, so start thinking of your questions now. I know you've all picked up a book when you purchased your ticket, but in case you wanted another, we have additional copies of Dorie's Anytime Cakes available for purchase tonight at the table where you checked in. All the books have been pre-signed, but Dorie will be around to personalize books after the talk tonight at a table on stage. Lastly, if you're joining us virtually on YouTube live stream, you can purchase a copy of Dorie's Anytime Cakes by clicking the link in the live stream description. From beloved James Beard award-winning and New York Times bestselling author Dorie Greenspan, a vibrantly illustrated collection of recipes for simple yet most memorable cakes. Over the years, Dorie has created thousands of excellent recipes, and out of all of them, the ones she's always come back to are the simplest cakes. With evocative writing, expert advice, and gorgeous illustrations by Nancy Pappas, Dorie's Anytime Cake celebrates the simple but still exciting and special, with more than 100 recipes for easy-to-make, easy-to-love cakes. Inducted into the James Beard Foundation's Who's Who of Food and Beverage in America, Dorie Greenspan is the New York Times bestselling IACP Award and James Beard Award-winning author of 15 cookbooks, including Baking with Dorie, Dorie's Cookies, Around My French Table, and more. She also has a Substack with a hugely devoted following, XOXO Dorie newsletter. She lives and bakes in New York City, Westbrook, Connecticut, and Paris. And as I mentioned earlier, Melissa Clark joins Dorie in conversation tonight. Melissa Clark is a best-selling cookbook author and food columnist for the New York Times, where she writes the popular column A Good Appetite and has starred in over 100 cooking videos. She's written 45 cookbooks, including the award-winning Dinner Changing the Game and her latest Dinner in One. Melissa attended Barnard College and Columbia University, where she earned her Master's of Fine Arts in Writing. Born and raised in Brooklyn, she lives there with her husband and daughter. She loves anchovies, radishes, chicken feet, and lox, but not in that order. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming Dorie and Melissa.
Thank you for being you. Thank you for bringing all your books. Are you on? Here, you talk. I'll be quiet.
Come on.
Is she on?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, how many people are wearing stripes? I see you. I see you. There you go. And I got our little scarf, so I'm wearing Dorie's scarf. So we're all going to celebrate you tonight and your beautiful book. What number book is this for you?
15.
Oh my God.
Not 45. 45.
Well, you know, some of them, but here's the thing, you do all the recipes for your books. A lot of the books I did were co-authored with chefs, so it's a much smaller workload.
45.
Still, it's not all my recipes. Okay, but so let's just talk about cakes and not cookies. You have always been the cookie lady in my head. How did you switch? You switched teams.
It didn't.
Yeah.
It did. No, so I feel like I've been an equal opportunity sweetlover. And I had no intention of writing this book. It's your colleagues that did this.
My colleagues?
Yeah, at the Times. So I got a call from Genevieve Poe, who's an editor of the New York Times, and she and Emily Weinstein asked if I would write a story about holiday cakes and do 3 recipes, and I said no. I know, you're listening to the New York Times, but because
You're allowed that privilege, but not everyone else.
But in my head, I thought about holiday cakes as fancy cakes, as cakes that would be the centerpiece at a holiday table, that might be frosted, that might be layered, that might be fancy. And I said to Genevieve, I'm not baking like that. I said, so I just said, no, I'm not baking like that. And then I had this idea, which just like popped into my head. I said, but if you would like the kinds of cakes that just stay in the kitchen, so that while you're baking the fancy cake, you have something to eat.
The cake to fuel the cake.
The cake to fuel the cake. I said I could do that, and she said yes, which was a surprise. And so I did 3 cakes, and while I was working on them, I thought, I love this. This is really, these are the cakes I love. This is the way I like to be. When they're made, this is the way I like to serve them, which is just on a plate, you grab your own, you cut them. And I got excited about the idea of writing a book.
How do you find anytime cakes. So what is the difference between an anytime cake and a party cake?
So the Sarah Kwok, who's here, is my editor, and she named the book. Originally, it was kitchen cakes. Actually, I tried calling the Times piece kitchen cakes, and they said no.
Well, I can see that because all cakes are kitchen cakes. I mean, you're not going to bake it in an oven.
No, but you can bring them out of it.
I see
You
what you're
bring
saying.
them out of it. These were, and these were cakes that's, well,
Or cakes that you eat in the kitchen.
or counter cakes,
Counter
or
cakes.
just very simple, simple cakes. And it was Sarah who came up with anytime cakes.
Which I love.
I love it too. Thank you, Sarah, wherever you are. She's in stripes. But I love it because I think it says what these cakes are, because they are simple. They could be breakfast. Do you have cake for breakfast?
If there's cake in the house and I'm ready for breakfast, yes, I do.
So, I mean,
Although, you know what, I will admit it, I actually like cookies for breakfast a little bit better. Don't be mad at me.
no, you're so fussy.
I mean, I'll eat whatever's in the house, right? If it's cake, it's cake. If it's cookies, but the cookie can be dumped in the tea a little more easily.
I have dumpling cake. And I'll love dumpling donuts. Yep.
So wait, so it doesn't fall apart? Like if I dump my cake, it won't just like, you know how you dump cake and it just kind of dissolves?
This one won't. No, so this one was, there were just so many surprises in writing the book, and the olive oil dunking cake was one of them. I don't know what I thought I was going to make, but I ended up with a cake that kind of had, it doesn't have yeast, but it has this stretch of a panettone.
Oh, wait, how did you get that without yeast?
An accident.
What?
I don't know.
What's the, wow, okay.
I mean,
I looked through this book, I didn't see that one, but I'm gonna make it, that's my cake, that is my cake. Okay, amazing. Okay, do you remember, when you and I did a video together, and you made a very, very fancy cake? Do you know what I'm talking
I
about?
made a very fancy cake that I made very imperfectly. I would like to go back and redo that
Yeah,
cake.
it was gorgeous, she's crazy, it was gorgeous. Remember, it was a pumpkin bûche de Noël,
Yep.
with like cream cheese, and it was, I mean, this was a fancy, fancy cake, and this took us a long time to make. It was so beautiful, and these cakes are nothing like that. These cakes are so, you can make these cakes in an hour,
You can make these cakes in an hour.
not 4 hours. I think it's
You're not going to be rolling it
Yeah.
and complaining that you didn't roll it perfectly. I was so upset about that.
Okay, it was
I
beautiful.
thought I could have been tighter. This, by the way, is
This is why she shouldn't make fancy cakes. She's too much of a
this
perfectionist.
is about 15 years ago. I think that we did this, yeah. Or 10. I'm still worried about that roll. Yeah, these cakes you can make quickly. A lot of them you can make by hand, you know, a bowl and a spatula.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. I was gonna say, so a lot of these cakes don't require any equipment. Was that one of the criteria?
Accident.
Just as,
You know, I feel like I look so organized because my hair is short and I wear a scarf. But, no, I really don't I look like the kind of person who has a neat desk?
no.
Okay. Because I'm not. And I work
You
very...
really look like the kind of person who alphabetizes your spices.
Do you do that?
Yeah.
Or in my next life I would love to. Yeah.
But I aspire to that.
It's good to have dreams, goals, hashtag goals. But I have thoughts. I don't really have a recipe list. Sarah, don't check back to see whether I made any of the cakes that were on that original proposal.
Oh, yes. Right? Never. The original proposal looks 0% like the actual book. That is a lot of cookbooks.
Yeah, but you're not, I don't think anybody is supposed to, I don't think you're supposed to tell
I
anybody.
don't think it matters because I feel like the evolution, like you said, the accident, like you didn't know that olive oil cake.
No, it's going to be a dumper. No. And sometimes, you know, I'm in the kitchen, my desk is in the kitchen, I'll be working at my desk and I'll think, what if I put rum raisins in something? And then pop up and make something. So it just happened. I if I knew that a cake, that I didn't have to use a mixer, then I didn't. But I didn't set out to develop recipes that were mixerless.
But it was a happy accident, because it does make, I mean, that's part of the thing about an anytime cake. It's not just about mixing the cake, it's a cleanup. Because that's, you know, it's like if you're burdened with a lot of cleanup.
Yeah, I mean baking though.
Yeah.
Baking's got bowls.
That's true.
I don't mean to discourage you because I've always felt like an evangelist for home baking. But it's got bowls.
Yeah.
It's got sticky stuff. And you need patience to be a baker because something has to bake.
So when you did the rum raisins, did you think of your dad?
Did I think of
Your father?
my father? No. So, do you think my father ever had a rum? I don't think so.
No, the raisins, because you told a story in your book about how your dad would pick the
The
raisins.
raisins out. So my mother, can't tell you
Well, I was going to ask, okay, let's talk about Dorie's parents. So tell us about how your parents influenced you as a cake baker.
So it turns out that this book, just like I wasn't sure what the recipes would be, the cakes brought up all kinds of memories for me, and the book ended up being more, not is nostalgic the right word, I don't know, but more stories about places I've been, people I've met, cakes I've known. But I realized that as I was working on the recipes for the Times and thinking about how much I loved these kinds of cakes, the memory of these cakes from my childhood came back. And my mother, who if any of you know me or heard me talk about my family before, my mother didn't cook. And she must have, but I don't remember. And she certainly never did. But there was always cake in that house. She shopped at bakeries, and there was always a cake, usually a kitchen cake. So there were crumb cakes, and there were coffee cakes, which I guess were the same as crumb cakes. They weren't fancy, they were these kinds of cakes. And my mother had a good taste, and she had a good sweet tooth, but she just never wanted to be in charge of making this stuff. My grandmother was a baker, and my grandmother would come to the house, and she would bring apple cake, and she would bring cookies, and she would bring honey cake. And my mother hated honey cake, but she loved the almonds that were across the top of the cake. And as soon as the cake came, she opened it, she took the almonds out. I never saw a cake that didn't have little holes in it. And my father would pick out the raisins. So
you were just left with the crumb.
Yeah, come on, Joe, you like the crumb.
It's cake crumbs.
It was just a funny thing. They were picky eaters.
Did you make that joke before? So wait, so are you the kind of person that goes in the ice cream, since they did that with cakes, you go through the Rocky Road ice cream and pick out all the marshmallows, or that?
No, so you know the ice cream that has caramel in the center?
Yes.
I eat around it.
What?
Yeah.
You and I would be good roommates, because I would eat the caramel. Okay, I was going to ask you about your grandmother's apple cake. So your grandmother's apple cake, there's several apple cakes, but I want to compare and contrast. You have your grandmother's apple cake, and then you have Sasha's apple cake.
Actually, I have my grandmother's honey cake, do I have my grandmother's apple? I have my grandmother's apple cake in another book.
Oh, okay.
And
I
neither
didn't want to see your grandma. I think I made your grandmother's apple cake. Yeah, it's delicious.
But neither one of them is really my grandmother's cake.
So, you wrote in the introduction that you're striving to make your
I
grandmother's.
don't think they ever will.
Why?
Do you have one like that? A recipe you can't get?
Yeah, but that's the fun of it. You just keep trying.
I'm not sure I'm going to keep trying. I've really been thinking about this. So I always say my grandmother's apple cake is the one that got away. And I made one, the one that you made,
Yeah.
that I thought was like my grandmother's, and it wasn't. And then in this book, there's Sasha's grated apple cake, which that if it becomes a cake, it's kind of remarkable. Dorie Goldstein gave me the recipe. It's layers of grated apple, a sprinkling of a mixture of flour and cream of wheat, and grated apples and flour, and it becomes a cake, which is
the amazing thing, and then the butter on the top, right? And then butter
yeah,
right on the top.
butter on the top of it. There's no reason this should be a cake, and it's so delicious. And I tasted it, and I thought, this is my grandmother's apple cake. And I finally decided that I don't care if I ever get the recipe. If I can every once in a while taste something that brings back the memory of that, it's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough.
That's
That's nice.
And so when your grandmother now, so when you do your grandmother's honey cake, and then you have the almonds on top.
I put a lot of almonds.
I was gonna say, I was like, so do you just like really pile on the almonds to make sure there's enough for everybody?
That right. If my mother were to come back, she'd be very happy. She'd be put almonds.
But you have to share them, maybe she would share them. She won't share them,
I don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about another cake of our joint history, Evanger's blackout cake.
Oh, do we have any people here who know Avengers?
Yes.
Yeah. It was the bakery in Brooklyn.
Tell us about Evanger's and tell us about your, because you didn't do that cake. You did a different cake, but it evokes the memory for you of Evanger's. So talk about that.
That was another cake I tried to do. So Avengers also had a great crumb cake.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And they had one with huckleberries or blueberries too.
Remember that one.
Yeah. Great bakery. So it was a chain of bakeries, I guess. And famous for this blackout cake, which was a devil's food cake, 3 layers, I think, filled with like a chocolate pudding filling, and then cake crumbs all over the side and the top of the cake. And it was, I mean, that was our special occasion cake. That was the birthday cake. That was, well, sometimes it was a Carvel ice cream cake. But yeah, the blackout cake. And when I finished reading From My Home to Yours, which was published in 2006, the manuscript was done, ready to go. A friend of mine called me, I guess. She said, I have a recipe that I think you'll love. It's just like Evanger's blackout cake. And I made it that night, and it wasn't. It might have been if I had gotten it right. I couldn't get the frosting. I just couldn't get the
That
frosting.
chocolate pudding, that specific chocolate pudding.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah,
But
it was, I feel like there was a secret there
that we may never
that
know.
we may never know. And maybe another cake that gets away.
Well, every once in a while you see recipes for it. But so I made the layers. I loved them so much that I made a chocolate pudding and put it in the center. And then I made a marshmallow, completely different because it's white, a marshmallow frosting, and called the cake something like the whiteout, blackout cake. I'm not sure. I don't remember. And I turned it in with I guess a couple of days later, with the manuscript, and it became the cover cake for Baking From My Home to Yours, that last minute cake. And then when I was working on any kind of cakes, and kind of thinking about, there are cakes in the book that have little hearts on them, and they're called treasured favorites. And a lot of those cakes are cakes that I've made for years, that I've played with, and was happy to get the chance to like bring a new version, into the world. And I thought about the Evanger's cake, and I thought, well, that was really a fancy cake, but it didn't have to be. And I made it as a bun cake, and it's delicious, but different from the blackout cake, because when you make a bigger cake and it's solid like that, and it's not cut by frosting, the texture is different. The way you cut it and feel it in your mouth is different.
Let's talk about bun cakes, because I feel like a lot of people have trouble with bun cakes. They stick, they don't know when it's done. Like, I get a lot of, do you find that you get a lot of emails about bun cakes?
I bet you get like 7,000 times more emails.
Well, I do fewer cakes than you do, but so tell us your best bun cake. Do you have some tips for bun cakes for people? Because you have a lot of bun cakes. Look at that beautiful bun cake on the cover.
That's a Halloween bun cake. That's is a bun.
It is a bun,
but
right?
it's the, yeah,
It's beautiful.
So Mary Dodd is over there, and Mary Dodd's my recipe tester and has been for many, many years, 11 I think, no, since 2011. And Mary likes to use baker's spray. And I resisted it for so long. I was a soft butter, flour of the pan. I've since come around. I think baker's spray made a change. There was something, anyway.
So baker's spray, and that works like a baker's joy kind of thing?
Right, so baker's joy, some kind of like, but I spray it, I brush it, and it's like, like being extra careful. So I use a brush to brush the spray, so all those little curves and stuff are done. And then I turn it over, because that spray can kind of cool in the bottom. And so I know that there are instructions, I've seen that people who say, don't spray the pan until you're ready to bake. Do it at the last minute.
Right.
But I do it at the start and turn it over, and things don't stick. You do it.
I started doing it a new way. I have Baker's Joy, which is great. It's a great product. So what Baker's Joy is in a can, and it's like a pan, but it has flour in it, so it's like buttering and flouring your pan at the same time. But so I started doing this other thing where I butter it, with soft butter. We always have soft butter out because we eat so much butter in our house, so we just have like a thing. So it's always something. I take a brush and I butter it, and then I sugar it. And then it gets a quick, but it's different. You have to want the crisp crust.
So I've done that.
Yeah.
I liked it. I haven't. You have to
want the crispy
But
crust.
who wouldn't want crispy
So
crust?
not always. So you don't always necessarily want. Like maybe sometimes you want a softer.
So on the chocolate cake, the new version of the old Avengers cake, there's an optional, but I hope everybody does it, chocolate glaze, and you wouldn't want the crunchy sugar.
Exactly. You wouldn't want the glaze. If you're gonna glaze it, you wouldn't want that. Have you ever done butter and cocoa powder? I've done that for chocolate torts, but I've never done it in bun pan.
I've done it, and it's nice because if you have a chocolate cake, you don't have flour showing around the side. But I don't do it routinely.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to get it in. I think the baker's spray is probably. You would know the baker's spray is.
And brush.
Okay, let's just talk about pie for a second. I've asked you about cookies, now I'm going to ask you about pie. How do you feel about pie, Dorie?
I love pie.
Are you going to write a book?
love pie.
Are you going to write a pie book?
No.
So you don't love pie that much?
No, there's so many other pie books. Yeah, we don't even know pie books. Not for me.
So is pie something, do you feel like pie is, I feel like people think pie is harder than cake. Do you think pie is harder than cake?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you?
I do.
Yeah, I don't crust. Once, so I learned to make a crust later in my baking experiments and experience. And when I learned to make a crust, I was so excited. It was, that I did it. But even now when I think about it, I was so surprised, and I made pie. That it worked, right? And I made pie day after day after day. So it's the crust, of course, not the filling. And I still get excited about it when I make it. But actually, I prefer tarts to pie.
So what do you do for Thanksgiving? What's your Thanksgiving dessert? Do you
Pie.
cake? You do pie. So you do like a traditional pie.
Pumpkin pie and pecan pie with chocolate because my husband likes
I love that too.
chocolate.
Pecan, yeah, it's good. Especially because if you use bittersweet, it tones down
The sweetness
Sweet,
of the
yeah.
corn syrup and the pecan. But cake. I mean, there's nothing that says that you can't have cake for
There's
Thanksgiving.
nothing that says you can't have cake for Thanksgiving. You wrote in your intro that there's something so welcoming and warming about having this cake. Even if you don't bake it, like your mom always just had cake, and it was just a way of being welcoming.
So my mother worked, but sometimes she didn't. And my memories of coming home from school are still hear that kind of perk sound that little bubbly. And there would be people. People would come, they'd sit in the kitchen, and there would be cake. And that idea that there's something that you can always give to someone when they come, something sweet, something simple, I find that welcoming, I find it warm, I find it generous, I find it gracious, I find it charming.
Do you ever keep cake in the freezer to have, like, are there cakes in the scope that you would say, these are the ones you put in your freezer, and when someone comes over,
Would you like to see my freezer?
we all like to see
I-
the answer is yes.
But that's the thing about simple cakes, because they're not frosted, because they're not fragile. Yeah, most of them freeze.
Which is your favorite to freeze in this?
Well, a loaf cake like the yogurt cake, the citrus cake freezes. I have the chocolate cake, it's called the devil's cake. There was the Avengers cake. I have that in the freezer with ganache glaze on it.
And it's going to be,
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It is fun.
And any tips for defrosting? Do you do it in the fridge overnight, or can you just pull it out on the counter, and in an hour it's cake?
When I freeze something, I wrap it and I defrost it in the wrapping so that it's ready.
It stays nice. Okay, let's talk about, even though these are simple, really simple, beautiful recipes, people are scared about changing recipes. And you always tell people where they can make a recipe their own, like you're telling people how to do variations. Do you think that people are, do you find that when the people really do take your recipes and make them their own, do you hear that from people that they're like, oh, I made your recipe for this cake, but, and is it something you can comfortably do when you're baking? Should you tell people not to be afraid of that?
So I don't advise changing the amount of liquid in a recipe or changing the amount of flour, or I would use the word ratio of flour, like dry ingredients, if I really understood what a ratio was. But if you've got a solid recipe, you can play with it a little bit. You kind of play around the edges, so you can change the spice. You can add or subtract nuts, chips, dried fruit, anything that you would fold into it. It's sometimes hard to change the shape of the cake because baking time is different. But you can make a couple of them and layer them. It's like the around the edges. There's some flour changes that you can make. But it's more the flavoring, the way you decorate it. What I found, so because I started, I'm not a digital native. I'm still excited, surprised by what I see on the internet and what I see people making. I'm always touched when somebody makes something of mine. But what it's done is given me kind of more faith in what people can do when they change recipes, and also that baking recipes are more forgiving than I thought they were.
Yeah.
When you see what some people do to your recipes, and then they have cakes and they love them. So I think if you've got kind of a solid, I got an email from someone on Friday, and she said, I made the Texas sheet cake. It's in the book. She said, it smelled so good, the chocolate was great. I put it in the oven, and just as I turned around to clear the counter, I saw the butter.
That happens to me so often.
Well, no, so what would you do if you saw the butter?
And it's burning in the oven?
Yeah,
I guess I would just let it do its thing. And was it good?
that's what I would do.
Yeah.
That's not what she did. She pulled the cake out of the oven, mixed in the butter, put it back, and declared it delicious. I wasn't there, I don't know.
But I can see it working. I mean, if you still have the batter, did she melt it? Is it a melted butter cake?
I didn't follow up.
I need to know all the details.
store, forgetting the butter.
So I think this book is excellent for beginner bakers. Which recipe would you say, okay, you're a beginner baker, you're not comfortable baking, which one would you start with in your book?
So maybe start with the yogurt cake, so which is a recipe that I got years ago when I first moved to Paris. The yogurt cake is probably when the recipe was given to me, I was told that everyone in France knows how to make this cake. And because for the most part, French people don't bake the way we do. They're not project bakers. They don't spend a whole weekend making that cake that I did in Walter. But I'm not thinking about it. The yogurt cake is just a simple cake that you mix in a bowl. It uses milk, it uses oil, so you're not creaming anything. And it is almost infinitely variable. You can change the shape of it. And in this book, I added berries, so it's a different cake in a little glaze. But that would be a place to start.
Okay, so make the yogurt cake. Now there's something about the yogurt cake. Can you change the yogurt and do another sour cake? Could you do buttermilk? Could you do
Yes, you could.
or sour cream?
You could, but then it wouldn't be yogurt.
Okay, buttermilk.
Yes.
Because I never know. I mean, I always have yogurt in the house, but I don't often have. So for buttermilk, I'm always using thin down yogurt.
Yeah.
Because that's what I got. Okay, let's talk about. Here's another hard question for you. A philosophical question. Is a brownie a cookie or a cake?
I feel like I've been found out. So in my cookie book, a brownie is a cookie. In my cake book, in my cake book, a brownie is a cake. And I justify that by saying it's my book.
And on that note, we're going to open up the questions to you all. You can ask Dorie all the other hard, pressing questions. And then just a more housekeeping. We're going to open it up for 20 minutes. And then Dorie is going to be personalizing all the books. So
And you're going to be signing books.
no, I already signed it. So you're going to use that table. We're going to move it over. You're going to be personalizing all the books. So stick around for that and buy more books because it is such a great Christmas present. It is an amazing Thanksgiving hostess gift. There's many people who will want this book.
You know, if she wasn't so good at what she does, I mean, think of her in sales.
Only books I love.
Okay, I'm gonna come around with the microphone, so whoever has a question. Okay.
Hi, my name is Adela. Is there any cake that you love that didn't make it into the book?
No. So this was one of the only books so I've never been late. I think that's true. I've never been late for a deadline. What are my gold stars? But I've never had extra time. Right, I'm always like right on deadline. And with this book, because Nancy Pappas was making these beautiful paintings for the book, I had to be done early. And so I had like an extra month to think about what I might have wanted to add. And you know, I think I got it. I think I got what I wanted. I had the chance to tell stories about the cakes. I had the chance to get recipes from friends. I had the chance to remake cakes that I loved, that I lived with me. So I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, this is the first time it's all here. There's nothing left on the kitchen counter.
Thank you. Hi, so my 4.5-year-old has just started getting into baking.
Yay.
And I would love to make her the third generation of our family to love Dorie. So I was wondering if there was a recipe you would recommend that's particularly good for baking with little kids who maybe are getting new and the flavors are a little bit
bakers.
I'm here with my sisters, so I love this whole generation.
So I was never a cupcake lover. I like cake, but cupcake, I don't know, I just didn't love them. But I made cupcakes because I now have 2 granddaughters, the adorables, and I wanted something both to make for them and with them. And I love the 2 cupcakes that are here. There's a vanilla cupcake and a chocolate cupcake, and I think they're really delicious cakes. And you could make those with a dough. That would be nice.
Hi, Dorie. I am really interested in hearing authors' different methods for recipe development. So I would love if you would talk a little bit more about your process, and particularly maybe the beginning of the process. Like when you're starting out, when you have that idea, when you're sitting at your desk, like what do you do next? How are you moving forward with your recipe?
So, at this point, I've done a lot of recipes. At some point, Eat Your Books, which is indexing, right, sent me a note and they said, we have, at that time it was like 1,500 of your recipes indexed. And, yeah, and I said, I can't believe I've made that many recipes, and Michael, my husband, said, I can't believe I ate so many. But I can often go back, I can think of a cake, have an idea, and think, oh, that's like the yogurt cake. And look at the proportions there, and think, okay, can I tweak it? You would think that would mean success at first shot, but you would be wrong. But it's a way of starting, of looking back, if I have an idea for the texture. But I don't know about you, but I often find that when I write something out, like a rough draft of what I think the recipe will be, I use pencil and paper. And I'll be mixing something and take a look at it and say, that needs another egg, or oh, it needs more flour. And so while I have never stirred butter into a cake when it's in the oven, I have added ingredients as I'm working. So it's trial and error. But I think the most important thing is the idea that you have some sense of what you want to do and that you can be working towards something. And it will change as you work.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. The school where I teach is starting a cookbook club, and this is going to be our first book. So, I'm wondering if, and several of us are here tonight, I'm wondering if you have any suggestions or fun ideas for how we might approach this with a variety of skills. Do people with different baking skills, that just, how do we do that?
So how many recipes do you think you'll make? Will everybody make the same recipe?
No, different, I don't know, but I think different ones.
I've never been in charge of something like that. Okay. So I think the best thing to do is to just let people choose what speaks to them, what they might. I've seen lately, I mean, the book is 8 days old. But I've seen on social media, people have been making the first of fall apple cake, and they've been making it with pears, and if there's a nod over here. So that's kind of nice. I just made the gingerbread, again, the baked in a skillet gingerbread. So fall, and are you starting soon?
I think so.
Yeah, so maybe you can practice for Thanksgiving. Make the morning, noon, and night Thanksgiving cake. Have fun.
You tell such beautiful stories in all your books, and you really give people a lot of confidence in the notes with all of the recipes. how would you develop that voice to really help people through their baking anxiety?
I'm stumped. Thank you. I went back to look at some old writing of mine, and I don't think my voice has really changed. So I think it wasn't a question of developing, it was just my voice. I've always written thinking that I'm writing for someone. So, particularly when I'm writing a recipe, so I'm imagining somebody in the kitchen. I'm talking to that person. And I think, I love baking. I love being in the kitchen. I love the idea of making something for someone and writing a recipe that someone will make for someone. And so I think it comes very naturally to me to encourage people. I want you all to bake. Like, leave here right now, into your kitchens, bake away.
Hi. One of the things that I love about your Substack is that you highlight other cookbook authors.
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh. Sorry. One of the things that I really love about your Substack is that you highlight other cookbooks that are coming out and tell us what to look for. And I wonder if you could tell us maybe about some cookbooks that came out not recently that have nonetheless had a real impact on you that are a little bit to the side. Like, I have my Julia Child, I love my Julia Child, I love my Rosemary Brown Levy, but it took me a long time to find home cooking because it's just not as, people don't talk about it as much. I wonder if there are books that are not necessarily classics, but that really deserve more attention that you can pay about.
I don't know that I have an answer for that, but I see someone, did I see Jenna? Hi, Jenna. Jenna Elwood writes a wonderful Substack called The Cookbookery Collective, and she often asks just that question. It's an interesting question because I think we live in an age where it's easy to learn about the works of people who have big social media followings, and we lose some of the really good books. We also lose, I'm really interested in, I'm not going to pronounce your name properly. I've been reading the books by Irina Georgescu. She wrote a book about Danube. There are books about regions that I don't know well, cuisines that I don't know that I find really interesting, and about writing about other people's cookbooks. Why wouldn't I? It's such, I think what's happening with cookbooks now is so exciting. There's so many new writers who have new perspectives. It's just, I want to tell people what's out there.
My glasses. If you found out that somebody was coming over in like 2 hours and you had to bake a cake for them, based on what was just in your kitchen, which one would you pick?
Oh, this is an easy question. Thank you. If somebody were coming in 2 hours, what would I make for them? So, the visiting cake. So when I got this recipe, which appeared, the original appeared in, it was published in Baking for My Yours, it was given to me, and the story that went with it was just that situation. It's the Swedish visiting cake. Ingela, who made it to me, grew up in Sweden, and she said her mother made this cake. When she saw people coming up the road, she would start to make the cake, and it would be ready by the time we sat down for coffee. So I would make the Swedish visiting cake, which I've done so often under pretty similar circumstances. because I had it. So yeah, the visiting cake.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth. I'm gifting this book to my dad for Christmas, and he loves chocolate more than anyone else I know. Every time we get him a baking book, my sister and I always flag the recipes we want him to make most. I was wondering if you could tell me what chocolate recipe we should start with.
What chocolate recipe you should start with. So it turns out this book has lots of them. Okay, it depends. The BFF brownie cake, which is the very first recipe in the book, that's an awfully good one. Also, you might be able to make it in the 2 hours before your company shows up. That's a really good one. The devil's cake is really good. Those chocolate cupcakes are, those are good too. Yeah, they are. Oh, the beggars bars. So that's from, Mondial, right? The little chocolate discs that have dried fruit on them, each fruit having a relationship to a monastery. And yeah, so I turned those into a cake. And that, you asked the wrong person. I like them all.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Nobody else? Okay.
Hi Dorie. My impression is that French baking in general is probably less sweet than... Can you hear me now? My impression is that French baking in general is maybe less sweet than American baking. I think that your recipes in general are not too sweet. If you try other people's recipes, do you typically cut the sugar, or how do you figure out how much sugar to put into a recipe?
I don't cut other people's recipes. Sugar in other people's recipes. I usually make them just the way they're written. If they're too sweet, if they're too sweet for my taste, but I love the cake, then I might the next time make it a little, but I do what I ask other people to do. If I ask you to make the recipe the way it's written, I'm doing it. But it is true that French pastries, French desserts are, I think, are less sweet than American. And I think there's more fashion to kind of make things less sweet and announce that this is not too sweet. I talked to Pierre, who's a French pastry chef, about sugar, and he said, I said, people are like cutting back on it. And he said, you can cut to a certain point, but sugar brings out other flavors. Sugar gives moisture to a cake, gives structure to a cake. And if you cut back, you're losing one of the qualities that make pastry really delicious and appealing. So it's about, you need to balance it.